Roll Tide, everybody. Bama basketball just continues to do their thing. It's time for Catfish Courtside. There he is, old Cat over there, ready to talk to you guys about hoops. But before that, let me hit the intro. All right, Chad Anderson, the Catfish. I'm Mick Gillespie. Back in the win column again, man. The SEC basketball is the best in the country. And this time Kent State came in. Bama's played like this tough schedule. This time they played like what Kent State was like 8-2 coming in, right? Bama blew them out in Tuscaloosa 81-54. Like, man, you're not coming in here and even challenging these guys. They've already played a gauntlet. We haven't even gotten into the conference schedule, but another win for the Tide.
Yeah, one more for Alabama. It's nice to see them come back, from North Dakota after that just miserable performance up north. And I get why you went and why you scheduled it. Dean Smith used to do that at North Carolina for some of his seniors. You kind of get the little like, hey, let's play a small school near where somebody grew up kind of thing, and all the fans get to come home, whatnot. Cool. But it sucked. And it was just nice to see Bama kind of get their head straight. Alabama 10-2. Let's be honest, most likely going to be 11-2 going into conference play. Mick, when you looked at that schedule preseason and everything Bama had to go through, especially that 6-7 game stretch that started with Purdue and ended with Creighton. 11-2, man. We're getting ahead of ourselves by only one game. But barring a catastrophe at home against South Dakota next week, Alabama's going to be 11-2 going into conference play with that schedule. Like,
yeah, right.
Every fan had to accept that and take that.
Yeah, look, I love it, man. I mean, and I knew they were going to be good. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the country, talent-wise. You got Mark Sears back, who is playing for a legacy at Alabama that could be unmatched, right? Yeah. Grant Nelson coming back, Nate Oates, the greatest Bama basketball coach of all time. I mean, I don't think that's a stretch, right? And a Final Four team from last year, right? But I mean, they played a schedule. Like, I look at the women's basketball schedule, and it's like, and I know you guys are like, man, he's talking women's basketball again. I make fun of them, but it's like what we used to do in men's basketball. You play a bunch of teams that you know you're going to beat. You mix in a couple good teams, but for the most part, you're not going to lose. And then you get in the conference schedule, and then you're in the middle somewhere, right? These guys went out and played like a tournament schedule in the non-conference, which is what Nate Oates has always done.
Yeah.
And they lost at Purdue. That's a tough place. The Oregon game bothers me because they should have won that one, but they didn't. And that's it.
The only one. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one you look at and you're like, damn, we could have got that one.
Should have.
Like that. Yeah, that's the one that probably bugs you the most, especially after how the rest of them went. Mick, you mentioned the SEC. Now we're going to do another show about football and playoffs, not to get these two tangled up. We're going to talk about how awful the committee is. But all right, there is no debate though in basketball, Mick. No debate. Do you know the worst record in the SEC right now? The worst record in the SEC.
I don't know offhand.
9-3. Think about that. The worst team in the SEC is 9-3, Mick. The worst team. Now, sure, some of these SEC teams still haven't played the schedule that Alabama's played, that Auburn's played, Kentucky, Tennessee, and so forth. But the SEC is 9-3. I don't care who you are. At 9-3 as the bottom, that's unheard of.
No.
Unheard of. I mean, we've seen Kentucky play crazy opponents. Tennessee's played some good ones. Auburn's probably had the hardest schedule. Credit to them. Alabama's had a gauntlet that they've ran through. Texas A&M has had some difficult games early on. Missouri played Kansas early on. Like, that's insane, Mick.
I know.
Like, it's crazy. 9-3 is the worst. So I want the fans to like have the right expectation, because this Alabama team could go 11-5 in the SEC, but then go to the national championship.
Well, it's
Like,
crazy is
it's
that you look
hard.
at the top 25, Tennessee's 1, Auburn's 2, and the coaches in the AP, right?
Yeah.
Kentucky's 4.
Yeah.
Bama's
Now, they
6
just lost, so they'll fall.
Florida's 6 in the coaches, which means Bama's like, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're the 5th best team in the country.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and they're the 7th best team in the country in the coaches, and they're the 5th best team in the conference. So it shows you like how good the SEC is right now, which is exciting because that's what you want, man. I mean, if you're going to win a national championship, and that's what the goal of this program is right now, it's not to, hey, we want to win the SEC. Oates has done that a bunch. It's not to win the tournament. It's not to get a number 1 seed. They want to win the championship. You put yourself through hell so that when you get there, you're ready.
Yeah. Bama, if you just took based on the rankings and said, okay, the SEC tournament starts tomorrow, Alabama wouldn't even get a bye in the SEC tournament. That's how good the conference is. Right? It's nuts, right? So, again, temper the expectation because this team is amazing. They've also got some stuff they got to work on. Other teams in the conference, though, they're incredible. And so it's just going to be a dogfight, Mick. Every single week, it's going to be a dogfight in the conference. And the one thing Bama's got to do right now, and Nate Oates talked about this before the game against Kent State, kind of after North Dakota, they've got to play defense consistently for 40 minutes. They keep having these dry spells of 8-10 minutes in a game.
Yeah.
And they got to shoot better. Never thought we'd say that about a Nate Oates team, but they're getting looks, but they got to make it, man. Like today, 9 of 35 from beyond the arc. I mean, that's not going to get it done when your whole game plan is 3s or easy 2s. And an atrocious day from the free throw line. They shot 51%, 18 of 35. This game could have been, if you just make 75% of your free throws today, that's another 7-8 points. Like you're sitting at 90 to 54. So they got to make the basket a little more. The good news is, they're still rotating guys in. They had 12 different guys play today, which is nuts.
Yeah, one more non-conference game. You mentioned it. You got to play all the South Dakota teams, right? You go up to South Dakota. You got the Jackrabbits coming to town, South Dakota State, and then all of a sudden you're into the SEC. I mean, it's just going to be, Oklahoma 14th, Texas A&M 12th, Ole Miss 17th, Kentucky 4th, right? I mean, you start going through here, Auburn 2, Kentucky 4, Tennessee 1. I mean, you're playing all these teams, and Florida 7. I mean, it reminds me of the old ACC, right? Maryland, Duke, North Carolina, Wake Forest, Georgia Tech. I mean, every game, every team had legitimate players. They won the national championship every year because they were by far the toughest conference. And I feel like that's what we're looking at this year with the SEC. This is the best SEC that I ever remember.
It's unheard of how many bids this conference could get. If 10 feels like automatic at this point, you could be looking at 12. That's how crazy it is. But Mick, you look at the first 5 conference games, okay? This is just January 4th to the 18th. So it's a 2-week window,
right?
5 games. You ready? Hosting Oklahoma, they're number 14. At South Carolina, hosting, and by the way, South Carolina is the 9-3 team. So that's your worst team. At Texas A&M, they're number 12. Versus Ole Miss and Coleman, they're number 17. At Kentucky, they're number 4. That's your first 5. You play 4 teams in the top 17. It's going to be brutal, man. Like you thought the non-conference was a gauntlet. Be thankful they went through it because they're getting ready to do it again.
Well, I love the fact that they went out and played everybody.
Yeah.
And now it's like, hey, look, you're not trying to be number 1 now. You want to be number 1 at the end of the season, and that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
So, and you lost right cell, but for the most part, besides that, the team's healthy. Mark Sears, another great game. The guy's been what we expect, man. I mean, 18 points a game, 4.5, 4+ assists per game, 40% field goal percentage for Alabama. And I mean, not to say that it's just about Mark Sears, but you have that star player that kind of, you build everything off of. And I feel like with this team, everything always goes off of Sears. Had 16 points in the win today against Kent State. But there's so many other players that contribute. But I mean, I still think that like having him is so important.
Yeah, I mean, he's the catalyst for the whole team. But one other thing we talked about in previous shows, they gotta minimize the turnovers. Like,
yeah, right.
You can't play Kent State, a team like Kent State, and turn the ball over 19 times. The other night against North Dakota, they had 13 turnovers in the first half. Now they corrected that, only had one in the second half, but they got to take better care of the basketball. Any games that they've been in trouble, today they weren't in trouble, but you just want to clean it up. But games where they have been in trouble or it's been tight or they lost, turnovers, man. Turnovers.
That's it. So you got the Jackrabbits next, and then the SEC schedule starts, but another win for Alabama. They took care of business. They really never trailed in the game, and I like where this team's going, man. Any final thoughts?
I mean, where they're going is fine, and it's just they still got things to work on. They're not the best team in the conference right now, but that's okay. That's the thing about basketball is you don't have to go undefeated or only lose one game or two games to get into the playoff. Basketball, this team's going to be in. They've got all the talent in the world. They just have to be clicking at the right time, hot at the right time. So they'll figure it out. We got plenty of time, but SEC play, man, it's going to be a fight. That's all I can say every single week.
All right, Kat, tell us all about what you do outside of covering Bama basketball.
Mick, I just put people in debt, man. That's all it is, just putting them in debt. So, but this is good debt. So we've got a couple of new programs. Scan the QR code there on the screen. See if you qualify for a 0% down payment program. We also have been helping everyone on the refinance side. Even though rates haven't come down as fast as people want, we're still saving literally $600, $700 a month for some families, putting them in better situations overall, helping improve their credit score, all those things. So best thing I can do, if you're on the fence, if you've even thought about it, if you just want to chat, get some advice, some direction, whatever, hit me up there. Phone numbers, emails, website, all on the screen. Or like I said, scan the QR code. Be glad to chat with you.
All right. That's right there. Talking about ChadwickAnderson.com. And don't forget, we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort, our friends over in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Check out the sports book. We've also got an awesome 90s concert coming. Some of Chad's favorite bands all ready to perform. Hinder, Tonic, and Fuel, that coming up on December 28th. You can get tickets there. And as you guys get that, you get that holiday money. And you're going, what am I going to buy with the holiday money? Boom. Bama Tailgate, newlifeart.com, 20% off. Take advantage of it. Put it when you get to the end. And it's like at the beginning, they say, hey, where'd you hear about it? Click that. Get to the end. Put it in there, 20% off, newlifeart.com. Daniel Moore, we both have a ton of Daniel Moore pictures. They're amazing. I'm looking at one right now. Look at that. It's when we beat LSU for the championship game. We were both there together. There's one where Tua threw a touchdown to beat Georgia. Take advantage of that code, 20% off, BamaTailgate.com. Bama Tailgate is the code, and then newlifeart.com. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us, and roll tide, everybody.